Hello. So, I'm going to talk about that dreaded D word that we hear a lot about, diversity. Specifically, diverse teams and how to build them. So, we hear a lot of people talk about building diverse teams and what we should do, but we don't hear enough people talk about why. Now, in the abstract, diverse teams, it's good to have a plurality of ideas and work with people that aren't necessarily all like us. But I find this lot tends to drive it home. What happens if you don't have a diverse team? Well, you end up making a racist soap dispenser that will only dispense soap if your skin colour is Caucasian, as happened to Technical Concepts when they installed their soap dispensers in the Facebook head office, which wouldn't have been so bad, but funnily enough, Facebook staff, when they video stuff, it tends to go viral. Can't think why. Apple made a comprehensive health tracker. You could track copper levels in your blood, your calorie intake, your calorie expended, how much calcium you ate. Couldn't track your periods. 51% of the population are women. Comprehensive health tracker, can't track periods. Google built a racist AI. It would look at your pictures and categorize them. And it was great. You can, this is a car, this is a dog, this is a gorilla. No, that's a colleague of mine. What's worse about Google is what they did to fix this problem. They removed gorilla as an option that you could classify into. They didn't stop the AI from doing it, they just got rid of the option. Amazon, they had a recruitment system where they fed in every single CV of all of their staff that had got a job. And they used this to train a system to spot what would be the best applicants. Basically, no matter what you did, you could not train this system to give you a woman. They managed to make a sexist AI. Garbage in, garbage out. And it's not just limited to tech. When Volvo developed the three-point seatbelt, total number of women on the team, 0. Ask any woman how comfortable they find those. So, how do we build diverse teams? Management have said we need more diverse teams. They've seen the examples. How do we do it? Well, step 1 is recruitment. We need to get them to start coming in the door. And recruitment is not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's very easy to say that all of our staff have been through exactly the same interview, they've had exactly the same questions, they've had exactly the same advert. The question is that process correct for everybody? So, I need to introduce you to some people. This is Lael Wilcox. Lael Wilcox won the Trans Am bike race. 6,500 kilometers across America from the Pacific to the Atlantic. Non-stop, self-supported, on a bike. She beat all of the men. And all of the women too. But she beat all of the men. This is Sara Hammond. In 2016, she started, along with 12 other people, an event called the Race to the Rock. Starts somewhere on the coast of Australia, 3,000 kilometre, unsupported, solo race to Uluru, the big red rock in the middle. 13 people started, Sara finished. It became known as the race so hard no man has even finished it. The following year she came back. 9 people started, 5 of them made it to the finish. Sara was the first one to get there. A man did come in, though when she crossed the line, he was 600 kilometres behind her. So they had to rename it. It was now the race so hard no man has ever won it, because one did finish. And then she came back the next year and proved it wasn't a fluke. For those of you that read The Guardian, this face will be familiar. This is Fiona Comber. Last year, she won the transcontinental race, from the Black Sea coast in Burgas, Bulgaria, to Brest in France. She beat 225 men and 39 women. She did it in 10 days, 2 hours, 50 minutes. I pulled out on day 2 due to heat stroke. Why am I talking about cyclists at a tech conference? Because when you start to change the distance that you measure the athletes over, the person that wins changes. Women generally will not be winning the 100-meter sprint. But when the distance is more than 300 kilometers running, women, statistically, will beat the men. We see this time and time again. I've used examples from bikes because I'm a cyclist. But you can take Yasmin Paris, who won the Spine race. You can take Ellie Pell, who won for the second time a 50k ultra in the US, only for them to find they hadn't actually made an overall prize, and there was just a men's prize and a women's prize. She was not happy. Or to put it another way, you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. This is a long way of saying, change your recruitment processes. Starting with a job advert. You've all seen the job ads where it lists nearly every single application that is used in the office. It's almost to the point where they've included LS and DIR. Thank you. Men will apply when they meet 60% of those requirements. Women apply when you meet 100%. We are immediately excluding women by making our adverts too complicated. We don't need all of that. When it comes down to it, your ideal job advert for a network engineer, you want someone with a bachelor's degree or equivalent experience. It doesn't have to be a degree. I started work the day after my 16th birthday. I did 3 years before I went to university. And I went to university because everyone kept saying, go to university and get a degree. The reality is, what I learned before I went to uni is more use to me now than what I learned at uni, other than holding my alcohol. Good communication skills, that's important. You want some experience and a team player. The first draft of this slide said not an arsehole, but I had to change it. But that's ultimately what you want. You want someone who's nice to get on with, can do the job, and has some experience. So why have a bloody great big long advert listing all the tools you use? What you use now is not what you use in 3 years' time, and it's not what you were using 3 years ago. So, we've done the advert, some people have applied. Excuse me. What happens in the interview? Think about when, where, and what your interview is going to be. Not everybody can come into your office to do the interview between 9 and 5. It might be that the job they're in at the moment won't let them out. Consider doing the odd interview on request on an evening, so that people that have other commitments might have that option. Think about the accessibility of your venue. Don't have it such that if somebody needs assistance or special access requirements, that they have to ask you, is your office wheelchair accessible? Offer that off the bat, straight away, so that people don't have to ask. Think about the questions that you ask. Now, 3 years ago, I had the best question in a job interview. Where do you see yourself in 3 years' time? Someone's done the maths. I don't know, I don't have 20/20 vision. Unfortunately, can't use that anymore. But we've all had the question, what's your biggest weakness? Anyone ever given an honest answer to that? If we're all lying, what's the fucking point? You're just making them squirm unnecessarily. With coding interviews, avoid whiteboarding. It's like waterboarding to some people. They are that similar. When you give somebody a whiteboard marker and say, please, show your answer on this board, women in particular, we are indoctrinated from this high. Do not put your hand up. Do not stand in front of the class. Do not make people look at you. Do not. Here, stand in front of the class and tell us your answer. Doesn't work. Don't do whiteboarding. If you take nothing else away from this talk, don't do it. So, you've had the interview. Tell people how they did. Even if it is, I'm sorry, we would have liked to have hired you, but you weren't the right fit. And do so in a timely manner. So, you've done the advert, you've done the interview, you've got people to come and start at your company. I hear a lot of people say, we're forever hiring women, but they never stick around. And what did you ask them why they didn't stick around? So, let's start with the remuneration. Equal pay for equal work. It's that simple. There should be no gender pay gap in your company. And to drive that home, pay transparency. You don't have to say, John is earning this much and Jane is earning this much. You can simply say, we have X number of employees that are earning between 20 and 25, and we have Y number of employees between 25 and 30, and people can look at that and go, wait a minute, why is there one here that's getting 100 and the rest of us are on 60? You don't have to explicitly list every number, but show what you're paying your staff. One of the other arguments you'll often hear is, but if we hire women, they're going to go off and have babies. Well, funnily enough, generally speaking, though not in all cases, to have a baby you do require a father as well as a mother. And the father should, and this is where I'm getting really radical here, the father should be involved in the upbringing of that child. So give the men parental leave. Believe it or not, the UK actually has some of the best paternity leave minimums in Europe. The Netherlands, you get 2 days. But it's not the same amount as the women get. So give it to both. Because that way the argument of, I'm not going to hire women because we've got to give them maternity leave, doesn't matter. Man's going to get the same amount of leave as well. And include adoption in there, however you acquire your offspring. New offspring, parental leave. Flexible working hours. In the Netherlands, if you are a parent, you can ask for flexible working, 4-day week, and they are required to give it to you by law. No ifs, no buts. In the UK, you're allowed to ask, and they're not allowed to hold it against you, but they're not required to give it to you. But offer flexible hours. We work in an industry where what we can do, or what we do, can be done from anywhere in the world. And most of it is concentrated in a 10 square mile area, in an earthquake zone, in California. We don't need it. Offer flexible hours. Offer flexible working conditions. So, language. It was a lot easier when I did this in the Netherlands, because I could critique their English. It's harder to do with a group of Brits. So I was talking to a tech conference organizer, and I mentioned that their conference had no women speaking. He said, we'd love more females to speak, but females just don't want to talk here. It's like, well, step one, the word you're looking for is women. When you call us females, you sound like a Ferengi from Star Trek. And it doesn't get any better when someone walks in and says, hello guys. Guys is not gender neutral. And this is the usual point where someone says, but it is. To which I have a very simple question. How many guys have you dated? So, look for alternative to guys. Folks, people, colleagues, minions, anything that isn't gendered. When you write your documentation, because you all do write documentation, right? Avoid the default male. Either alternate male, female, or just don't gender your examples. Think about your linguistic biases as well. So, within your working environment, crack down on the microaggressions, because what starts as a microaggression will become a macroaggression. You also need to have a zero tolerance of negative behaviour, because if you let it happen once, it will snowball. Avoid tokenism. I've been to companies for interviews, and they show you around, and they introduce you to, look, this is Janice. See, we have a woman. Yeah, and thank you. So avoid tokenism. Look to have, multiple people of different backgrounds working in your teams. There's this myth in tech of the 10 times engineer, this person who is worth 10 normal engineers, and as such, they can get away with being a bit mildly offensive. No, they can't. A 10 times engineer is a single point of failure. You can't sack them, but what happens if they get hit by a bus? Don't put yourself in the position of having to deal with upsetting one lot of staff or firing the racist. Don't make it a choice. And with that, believe your employees. Look at some of the big tech companies in the US and the bad publicity that they're getting because they didn't do that. Monitor your churn rate. We're always hiring women. Then why is there only one left? Find out why they're going and change things for the better. So, having got people to come to your company, having got them to stay there and paid them a fair wage, what do we do next? Step 1, or step 0 rather, recurse. Start again. Keep the pipe flowing. In the UK, that means things like Take Your Daughters to Work Day. It means internships, work experience. Get involved in outreach to promote STEM with minority groups. There was a school in the UK which had various people from different industries come in, and the students could sign up. And one of the girls signed up for the engineering session, turned up to the classroom, found all of the seats were full. And when she poked the teacher and said, "Excuse me, I signed up for this," the teacher said, "You're a girl, so I moved you elsewhere. I thought it was a mistake." Encourage women from the beginning, and also celebrate our successes. People say that tech has happened because of men. Does anyone here know who Sophie Wilson is? Hands up. Seriously? Amsterdam was much more. You all have a device in your pocket designed by Sophie Wilson. She designed the ARM CPU that is in every single phone in the room. Who here knows who Hedy Lamarr is? Slightly better. She designed Wi-Fi. Celebrate our successes so that people don't think that tech is a man's game. Any questions?
Okay.
Hello. Microphone. I've got a mic, just not that.
Yeah, yes, but I need to have a working one as well. Okay, so over there, first of all. Sorry.
Hello, Hazel Smith, Google. On one of the things you mentioned was that, to sort of trick questions and questions that are just, are uncomfortable or perhaps harder for some group of people to answer convincingly than others. You mentioned like the biggest weakness question. What is your opinion of so-called competency-based interview questions? Like, tell us about a time when and how that impacts on neurodiverse candidates.
Wow. Neurodiverse Can you say your employer again?
Google.
So I started the application process with your employer. May as well burn the bridge while I'm here. The process involves, so you have a phone interview and then another phone interview, and then you go to a Google office and you have 4 interviews over the course of a day. You have dinner in the middle. That is seriously fucking stressful.
It's fucking exhausting.
If you are in any way not completely neurotypical. That can be incredibly stressful. When I realised that was what the option was, I gave up on the application process because I couldn't face the 4 interviews on one day, plus the performative of eating dinner with a group of strangers in an unknown situation.
I managed to get them to split mine over 2 days, but it took some talking me into bothering with the process. I was apprehensive as well.
With things like that, you need to add it as an option. That comes under the accessibility criteria. It's like when you say, if you need wheelchair access, then you press the button and the door will open, and you send that detail in the initial come have the interview process. Don't make people ask, because people don't want to be that, I'm sorry, but could I? People don't want to beg.
Yeah, I know that. I'm bullheaded enough to kind of to insist but I know a lot of people would have just would have been very off-put by something.
A lot of the people. I mean, I've been in IT for 22 years. I'm here despite the system, not because of it. And I know a lot of people that have fallen out of the pipe along the way. Blimey.
No one?
Going once?
Going twice?
Sold.
Thank you very much, Julia.